Well, I think a big part of why it's not as common now is because, like, right now people have very little time to, like, when they go home, like, we need to rest, recover, lift, all that kind of stuff. So it's hard to get in there and train, and then on top of that, add to it that people have shorter attention spans now than they did 15 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, before, you could go out and you could mat wrestle and do that kind of stuff. Like, if you watch Dean Malenko was my favorite wrestler as a kid. Like, watching Dean do all this awesome ground stuff was what really got me back into wrestling. And you can't really do that a lot these days because people tune out so quickly mentally. They've got, they're watching the show, but they're also on YouTube at the same time and checking their Facebook. And the second they see something that they might even think for a second is boring, they start switching off and going to these other versions of media, and like it's, and so I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of guys don't do as much of it, and you see more of the action-packed style of wrestling, the big moves, the high flying, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I'm not a huge fan of that stuff. I find you see a lot of that stuff, and it doesn't always necessarily make sense, and that's why I like watching guys like you and Chris Jericho and a few other guys in the WWE, because you bring that realism back into pro wrestling. Now, one of the new phrases that you've been using, the yes. Is that inspired by Diego Sanchez? Is that a Sanchez thing?
Oh, yeah, it sure is. And do you know what it was? Is that that first season of, I don't know if it was the season of Ultimate Fighter that he was on, or if it was one of the build-ups to another show that he was explaining why he says yes and stuff. And I just looked at him and I was like, man, this guy is so annoying, But I love Diego Sanchez as a fighter, but the whole yes thing was just so ridiculous, right? Like, he's pumping himself up and being positive and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, I liked that. I liked it as far as it made me hate him, And so anyways, and then, oh my gosh, this last fight he just had with Ellenberger, right?
Yeah.
Where he comes to the ring and he's carrying a cross and, he's holding it in front of him like he's warding off vampires. The guy is great, like...
Yeah, he's a character, right? I mean, he'd fit right into the WWE. He's out of control.
He sure would.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Daniel Bryan, we love seeing you in the ring, and it's been just fantastic speaking with you. It's been a real honor. I'm not blowing smoke when I say you are one of my favorite guys to watch each and every week. You're one of the main reasons I watch SmackDown. That and Booker T's commentary, the two main reasons I watch SmackDown every week. And I look forward to seeing you here in Montreal, March 16th at the Bell Center. You take on Randy Orton and the Big Show. Should be a good match. Yeah,
it's gonna be a great show, and on top of that, there's gonna be CM Punk against Dolph Ziggler. There's gonna be John Cena against Kane in the Last Man Standing match. I mean, it's gonna be a great show, and those shows at the Bell Center are always awesome.
Yeah, always. Of course, a lot of history at the Bell Center. I got to ask you just one last question about Randy Orton. What's his deal? Why does he keep having injuries and then coming back like a couple weeks later? It's been 2 straight injuries. Now he comes back. What's his deal? He didn't seem, I didn't think you gave him a concussion, right?
Well, I am happy that I gave him a concussion, put him out of the Elimination Chamber match. This is a very tough sport. Being in the WWE is very tough. That's why we tell people don't try this at home. And Randy Orton has been in the WWE wrestling 150 or more shows a year for a long time. And with all the travel and all the wrestling and everything like that, it takes its toll on your body. And you'll see, it's noticeable in Randy Orton because he's a main event guy. He's a top guy. So when he gets hurt and has to take a couple weeks off and then it happens again, you notice that. But even somebody like Ted DiBiase, he's had like 4 or 5 injuries in a row because when you're compensating for one injury, you're all of a sudden putting stress on something else and getting injured with something else. And then, all these different things happen when all that stuff, it's like a snowball rolling downhill, all these things start accumulating, and that's why it's very important that people don't try this stuff at home, because we are trained professionals, and even we get hurt doing what we do, so we don't want kids or anybody else doing this at home because they can get seriously injured.
And what's it going to take to see Tyson Kidd versus Daniel Bryan for the title in a main event of a pay-per-view?
Oh my gosh, I would love that, but but we'll have to see. So.
All right. Well, it's been great talking to you, Daniel, and we appreciate you taking the time and look forward to seeing you here March 16th at the Bell Center.
Thank you very much.